The Finders, the FBI raid that wasn't supposed to exist. A long-form investigative thriller by Behind the Veil Truths. The question they never answered. What kind of case forces local police to call the FBI, forces the FBI to notify the CIA, and then forces everyone to pretend it never happened? What kind of cult leaves behind ritual photographs, coded manuals, foreign contacts, and sexualized children, only for the final report to say, no evidence of criminal activity? And what kind of power makes evidence disappear after it's logged? Tonight, we reopen a file that was never meant to be reopened. This is The Finders, Chapter 1, The Children Who Wouldn't Speak, 1987. The arrest in Tallahassee should have been routine. 2 men, 6 children, a park bench. But officers noticed something immediately wrong. The children wouldn't make eye contact. They answered questions like they were reciting lines. When asked their names, some hesitated, as if unsure which identity they were allowed to use. One officer later said it felt like interviewing trained assets, not kids. Then came the whisper. One child quietly told police they were being taken to be sold. That single word detonated the case. Chapter 2. The van that changed everything. Inside the van, officers found maps marked with foreign destinations, computer equipment far beyond the era, photos of naked children, not sexualized in the obvious sense, but staged, ritualized, deliberate. Notes discussing training, detachment, and group bonding. This wasn't chaos. This was structure, and structure implies planning. The Tallahassee police chief made a call he would later regret. He escalated. Chapter 3, The Washington Townhouse. The trail led directly to a quiet D.C. neighborhood. No incense, no chanting, no warning sign, just a townhouse. Inside, investigators reportedly found detailed descriptions of ritual practices, manuals describing sexual contact between adults and children as educational, photographs of children participating in symbolic ceremonies, evidence of surveillance and intelligence-style note-taking, and references to embassies and foreign travel. One internal document used a phrase rarely seen in law enforcement reports, possible ritual abuse indicators. Another used a phrase even rarer, potential intelligence connections. At that moment, this was no longer a police case. It was a national security problem. Chapter 4. The Call That Silenced the Room. According to FBI memos later released, the CIA was contacted, not accused, not investigated, consulted, and that distinction matters, because from that moment on, everything changed. Investigators were reassigned. Evidence requests stalled. The tone shifted from urgency to restraint. One agent later described it as, like someone flipped a switch. Suddenly we were the problem. Chapter 5. The Report That Defied Reality. When the official conclusion came, it shocked even seasoned agents. No charges, no follow-up, no prosecutions. The report suggested the photos were misinterpreted, and the manuals were philosophical, and the children's statements were unreliable, and the group posed no threat. Yet earlier drafts of the same investigation told a very different story. Those drafts? Gone. Moments like this are why independent investigation still matters. Supporting work like this by liking and subscribing to Behind the Veil. Truths helps keep pressure on stories institutions would rather forget. Chapter 6. Who really led the Finders? At the center stood Marion Pettie, educated, articulate, technologically sophisticated, not the profile of a drifter cult leader. Former members describe him as obsessive with psychological control, fascinated by breaking traditional family bonds, and deeply interested in training children to detach emotionally. Some describe the group as an experiment. Others used a colder word. Program. Chapter 7. The Evidence That Vanished. Years later, journalists began filing FOIA requests. What came back raised alarms. Entire pages missing. Photographs referenced but never released. Inventory logs with no matching evidence. Redactions that made no legal sense. Some documents were stamped destroyed. Others simply stopped existing. In federal investigations, that doesn't happen by accident. Chapter 8. The Witnesses Who Backed Away. Several former members initially agreed to speak. Then they changed their minds. Some cited fear, others cited legal pressure, a few vanished from public record entirely. One journalist received a warning. You're asking questions people don't want reopened. And that's when the story became dangerous. Chapter 9. The Bigger Pattern. The Finders are not an isolated case. They fit a pattern seen again and again. Allegations involving children, intelligence overlap, early acknowledgement of danger, sudden shutdown, and narrative reversal. Public amnesia. Whether the Finders were protected, tolerated, or merely inconvenient remains unproven, but the shutdown itself is documented. And silence at this level is never neutral. If this story unsettles you, you're exactly where the truth lives. Subscribe to Behind the Veil Truths, because once you see the pattern, you can't unsee it. Final scene, the file that still breathes. Today, the finders are officially dismissed as a footnote, but the memos remain, the redactions remain, the children, now adults, remain silent, and the question still echoes through sealed archives. What did they find that made them stop looking? Next time, we follow the same trail, to other raids, other files, other disappearances. Because some truths don't die. They wait. Join the investigation. What do you believe? Was this a misunderstood commune? An intelligence-adjacent experiment? Or a cult shielded by power? Which detail disturbs you the most, the children, the photos, or the silence afterward? Leave your thoughts in the comments. The veil is thinner than you think,